Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is a webinar on unmasking your leadership. Why emotional intelligence is the new performance edge. And this is extremely important because we talk a lot about authenticity, and that is the reason for the name of our company, Authentifly, because we believe that authentic nature is lacking in today's society and how we build corporation. And I think because of that, a lot of people are feeling that they're being undervalued or they're not being seen and heard or they're not growing in certain corporations. And so we're here as master coaches, experts in the field of human psychology, executives, former executive leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators, and we're going to share our story of how we've navigated this authentic direction and how to be authentic in a corporation and developing our companies and developing our teams and our staff. And so today I have my co-founders of Authentifly, Iwona Szewczyk and Alex Cabon. And just give a little share on Alex. He's the co-founder of Authentifly with over 10,000 hours of coaching CEOs and executives across 47 countries. Alex is an expert in emotional intelligence, culture transformation, a former PwC strategist and TED speaker. He guides leaders to unlock authenticity as their performance edge. And Ivana, she's the co-founder of Authentify, an ICF certified results coach trained by Tony Robbins. Ivana blends corporate leadership experience with deep expertise in change management. She empowers leaders to overcome inner blocks, embrace authenticity, and build inclusive, high-performing teams. And myself, I'm Yenvy Truong. I'm the co-founder of Authentify. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a leadership advisor. I bring over 20 years of experience in scaling healthcare and tech companies. I've led and navigated transformation and clarity and emotional intelligence and turning vision into human-centered action. And so welcome my fellow co-founders. I'm excited to have this conversation. And today, the way we're going to set this up is we're going to really flow in conversation because I think to its authentic nature, we want to share our story and we want to share what our aha moments were to realize to have this clarity on what authenticity really means in a corporation. And when we work with leaders and we work with founders and entrepreneurs and corporate leaders, we always find that once they unmask, or they take off the mask of what they think they should be in a corporation, they start to perform so much more. They start to really grow and whether it's the glass ceiling, whether they believe that they have that imposter syndrome, for example, that all starts to dissolve because they step into who they really are. They perform from that space. And so I'll go ahead and have Alex kick it off and let him go ahead and take the stage from here.
Thank you so much, Yenvy, for your energy, for your inspiration. I mean, I love in you this entrepreneurship, what you've built, but also this passion you have, this sense of impact, and this sense of strategy and technology in everything you bring. So we're going to start with you, Yenvy, and then Ivona, I'm going to ask you girls, to share some stories. Masks can be cool. When you're at a party, you put a mask. It's so much fun. But it's a conscious putting of a mask. When you have an unconscious mask that you're wearing without knowing you have it, this is what the three of us have experienced. And as
Yes.
Yenvy just said, we're going to share some aha moments, some vulnerable moments where you realize you're wearing a mask and you start to be able to somehow remove it. And
Mhm.
this process can be painful and can be progressive until you do it. We need to add some special effects here, but this is this is the idea. So Yenvy, why don't you kick off by sharing with us one of these aha moments, a moment where you really realize you had this mask and what happened then?
Right. I think my whole life, I've always worn some type of mask, whether it was for my parents,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Them wanting me to be a doctor and always having this mask of being perfect, always trying to get straight A's, living up to their expectations. There was always that mask to start off with. And that mask really built my behavior and my rituals and the way I think about the world. But then I needed the courage to actually unmask that and say, I don't want to be the doctor, right? And really
Mm,
follow what my heart really wanted, which was I said to my parents, well, I don't want to be a doctor because I can only help one to one. Right. But what I really want to do is help one to many. And funny enough, yesterday I was coaching an entrepreneur, and she goes, thank you so much for what you're doing. This really helps. And I go, I'm just living my purpose. And it hit me so hard because that was a conversation I had with my parents very early on was, I can help so many more people. Although they were still very unhappy with the fact that I was not a doctor, I had to have the courage and the belief in myself to move forward. But through that process, then I went in, many days I sometimes think as an entrepreneur, I should have just been a doctor. It would have probably just been easier, right? But there are many days where um, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, and even during that, when you're very young and you're just learning, you're looking for models and role models to learn from, right? And so you step into this corporate world and you're like, oh, that person seems successful. So why don't I step into that role? Why don't I step into this masculine women, right? That she executes and she gets stuff done. She has one child and she does her yoga and she does this. And I was like, I'm gonna step into that. And then I'll look at another person that's a boss and a CEO or a VP or something and go, he's really good. Right. And I'm going to step into that role. And before you know it, I have all these masks of like how I should be and how I execute because I'm watching my role models very early on. Right. And so I built these masks and these role models of different people that I thought was success because they look like they were successful in a corporate
mm,
environment. And then
mm,
I started executing the same way they did. I took on some of their, the way they executed, the way they train people, the way they manage. It was not true to me. I was just using their tools and build using what they were doing. Whether they learned it from other people or that it was unique to them, I don't know. Right. But that was not unique to me. I was just using what other people were doing and saying, okay, you do it this way. I'm going to try this. And, but what I realized was I was not happy. I didn't, the way I led people according to how my manager was leading was horrible, actually. I look back and it was the worst management process that I could have followed, right? It
mm,
really made my employees and my team very unhappy, dissatisfied, and even created a very toxic culture. And from
mm,
that, I was like, I'm not happy. And
mm,
I watched this other role model of a C-suite executive, and again, I try to execute that, and still I was not happy. Why? Because the people and the team around me was not happy either, right? And so I realized that that there's something wrong, obviously, when I'm not happy and the people around me aren't happy. And I had to figure that out. And that's a very dark moment when you're like, this is not working. Yeah, I'm making a lot of money. I'm successful, but I'm not happy. The people around me are not happy, and I just feel very dissatisfied in a flux. And it wasn't until after one of my own startups that I exited. I stepped out and I was tired, exhausted. I looked in the mirror and I go, okay, who am I? Right? Who am I? Who am I? And and I always had this conversation of masculine and feminine. And I go,
mm,
I always ask my friends, well, I feel, what is feminine? Is it putting on a dress, putting on makeup? Because I put on makeup, I wear a dress, I look pretty, right? But why did I not feel feminine? Because I hear this difference. And
mm,
I said, well, I want to really understand that. And so I started really going into women's organization, C-level executive organization, corporate organization where it was just all women. And it was a space for us to have our conversations around our challenges, how we're navigating our challenges in a really corporate, a very large corporate environment. And at the end of the day, it was all the same. I heard the same things from every single woman. And I go, what, why is that? Right? And I started realizing is it's because we live in this in an infrastructure, a corporate infrastructure that was always developed by men to start off. I'm not saying bad or good, but we as women stepped into an infrastructure that was built by men, and men lead differently. Their energy is different, and their expectations and results are very different. And so, to me, to lead in that manner was not genuine to me. It was not authentic to me because I wanted people to be happy. I wanted to get results through people being engaged, through people wanting to be inspired,
Mm.
right? And so I said, the only way I could do that is by building something for myself, right? I can't step into somebody's home and tell them what to do and how to do it, right? I can do as much as I can, but that's why one of the reasons why I'm a true entrepreneur is I just like to do it my way and have things my way in that sense because I have a vision for how things inspire me. And so going through that, I realized that women had a tendency, they just felt that they were not being seen, heard, that they felt like they were being undervalued. And why? Because we were in this infrastructure that was not authentic to ourselves. We were putting these masks on, right? And then we look around us and everything just seems not good enough, right? And so that's why I went on this journey, and that's how we met each other, right? Was because I went on this journey to really peel off this mask, and it wasn't until the real feminine energy that I felt was when I was dancing salsa with my husband. And this
Mm.
has nothing to do with being a man or a woman. It was just the feeling of freedom. When the dance instructor said, "In this room, your husband leads no matter what." And at that point,
Mm.
I was like, "Oh, even if he steps on my feet, even though if he's doing it all wrong, see that judgment comes in." I did the same salsa with my ex-boyfriend. We fought the whole time because I was trying to lead. In this
Mm.
space, I closed my eyes. I go, "Okay, I'm just gonna pretend he's gonna lead me however he wants, and whether it's a mistake or not, I'll just let." It was the most the freeing feeling I had ever felt, and I look at my girlfriends who are very feminine and very, they're very happy and glowing. And that's how they always exude their feminine energy, was because they have this freedom to be themselves, to be free and be safe. And that's what I want from a leadership perspective, the freedom to lead in your own skin, right? Because you
Mm.
have everything, you're at that level because you led you have the core and the understanding and the training and the teaching to lead from that perspective. But because we put on these masks, that's when we start calling ourselves imposter syndrome because we're trying to put on these masks and live up to the masks. And so that's my little tidbit. I hope that was helpful in my journey. But that's where I am today. That's that really brought me to where I am today and working with you both as my co-founder.
What a beautiful story, Envy. You really see the unmasking happening in layers, right? It's so beautiful how you start talking about your parents and being the good girl or the good boy. We all have to be to some degree. We need the love of our parents and the support at the beginning. We need to follow a bit, but then some of us stay too long in this journey and become a doctor, and 40 years later they're miserable. You had the wisdom to very early on recognize this framework of your parents and starting to challenge it. And then you had your models as well in business that you reproduce. We
Yes,
need to model people to learn. So you reproduce some elements, but then you realize you had the success, but you were miserable, right? So it's
right,
like you had the wisdom to peel and to raise your consciousness, raise your awareness at every level, and peel a bit more the onion and remove another level until you and then you had the feminine journey you talked about, where you went to all these groups, and the salsa, where you let go of control and judgment, and you embrace the flowing part of the feminine, and now you can inspire us and so many other people with your true. I mean, there is always another level, right? But you have
right.
quite so much progression already. So would you say that it's about layers that you have removed, and you're searching for a new one now? It
I
never
would
stops.
Yeah, it never stops because you always discover something, right? Like it never stops, and if it does, you're not growing because and that's the beauty of letting go of control, is that you just don't know,
Hmm.
right? I think one of the
Hmm.
most beneficial moments I had, even with all my success and building companies and doing all this stuff, I woke up one morning And I said, you know what? I don't know anything. I really don't know anything. And that was the freedom. Like that's what we want is that freedom to just let go of the shackles and just say, I have all the tools and intelligence and experience that I need that whatever comes at me, I will respond to it and I know I will be fine. Right. And so I don't need to predict what the future looks like. I don't need to try to control the future. Right. Because I know that I am capable of doing whatever I want when it comes or capable of resolving or responding to that moment whenever it comes and it challenges me. And so that was the most empowering space that you can be in, right? Once you say, I really don't know, and it doesn't matter, right? And
Mm.
so I think that whether I'm still growing or not growing, it's I don't know. Right? I know
Mhm.
that I've had many cycles of what we call the dark night of the soul, and then it's like
Mm.
unlayering like a skin, and then you're just a different
Yeah.
person from that moment, right? Once you just unlayer it, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful when you're on that journey because you just don't. I don't know what I'm gonna be like when I'm 80 or 90, but I hope it's magnificent. That's all.
I love it. I'm sure in Iwona and me that we're going to explore now as well as the story, we'll see also the dark night of the soul and these cycles of crisis and victories. That's why we are sharing our vulnerable moments like Yenvy just beautifully did, because we want you to maybe be inspired as well, to have the courage, to have the vulnerability to do what we did and to question and to go one more level and embrace uncertainty like Yenvy is doing right now. She doesn't know what the next layer is, but she builds internal certainty that it's worth the freedom, the love, the impact. So we're going for it, right? And there is a reason why Iwona has been from the beginning chosen as our leader with me and Yenvy, that she will manage our organization and she will be the one that can really, make everything happen here and command and direct all the beauty of what we want to create. I think Iwona, you have something incredible, which is you've done internal transformation in very large multinationals and different ones. You've worked in the inside and you've been able to do a very profound self-work on the side or in parallel. And that's quite rare. I mean, many people would like to do that, but I haven't met many that have managed to have a successful corporate career and be promoted constantly, go international, go to different levels, and at the same time do the work personally and then have the courage to also quit these high paying salaries and comfort to become an entrepreneur with us today. So that's quite a beautiful background for you to tell us a bit about what has been your unmasking story.
Thanks, Alex. Yes, that was quite a challenging story. And unlike Yenvy, who you said that you already started early on putting some masks, I always felt strong connection to my authentic self. And even though my father wanted me to be a lawyer from the beginning, I was like, no, that's not me. I'm not gonna be a lawyer. And my parents never pushed me to anything because they knew that if I decided something, there's no way that they can convince me otherwise. I think it I think what happened is in my corporate job when I started being promoted very fast, this is where I started putting on different masks. So beginning of my career was very fast paced. I was fortunate to be presented with many incredible international opportunities. But it was a lot of going out of my comfort zone. And in my late 20s, I took over a role of regional sales and operations lead for Asia Pacific, and I was relocated to Shanghai. And this is where real imposter syndrome kicked in for me. I was the only female in most rooms, and definitely the youngest person. So I made myself believe that I have to be someone else in order to be successful, respected, listened. And that was tough. I looked at leaders around me, those usually men in their 50s, 60s, and I tried to be, more masculine, more tough, because I thought this was expected. Well, at some point, my boss actually told me, and I quote, that I should be more bitchy.
Mhm.
I tried to imitate him, and other leaders, and I would go to a meeting saying like, "Oh, you just have to do that. You just have to do it because I say so." I was more controlling, but people would comply, but there was no connection. What definitely I got from it was exhaustion, enormous stress. I was at the edge of a burnout. I was constantly exhausted to a point when after yet another long haul flight, all day meetings, and then business dinner, I literally passed out of exhaustion. And that was a turning point for me when I said, oh, I need to relax. I need to take it easy. And I reconnected with myself again. I decided, oh, this is just a job. What if I can just be more me? And what I
Mhm.
was always good at is connecting with people. So why can't I be like that? So I stopped, I paused a little and started connecting more, listening more to people, listening to their side of a story instead of just, pushing the corporate agenda, whatever was expected from me. An incredible thing happened because in my masculine pushed persona, I don't think I was particularly successful at that point. But
Mhm.
only later, I realized at one point, one general manager called me asking for help. He said, "Can we brainstorm some solutions? Because I'm in trouble with this and this." It's like, wow, he didn't call me to report, which was normal case. He actually told me he has a problem that it's not a problem that he would normally disclose to the corporate. So this is when I realized that actually this human connection make all the difference. The feedback that I got later on is, oh, the difference with you was that you actually listened and we could feel it. And the real power, that really what makes me realize that the real power is in connection and authenticity. Because early on, I thought success meant being tough, being decisive, a bit intimidating, because this is what I saw around me. But I was so wrong. Oh my gosh, I was so wrong. I think I had confused strength with toughness, and I lost sight what made me successful in the past before, what made me effective. That was empathy, that was curiosity, deep listening. I think this is the key. And when I dropped that mask and really became myself again, this is where incredible things started to happen. People collaborated much more. They showed up, they engaged, they took responsibilities, accountability, and the real change happened. And all my career, I actually dealt with change management. And it's not true that people resist change always. What they resist is being pushed, not being listened, not being heard, understood. So when we just be real, be ourselves, be kind, professional, but kind, that's where the real shift starts. And authenticity is not being soft. It's being strategic, really. It's a foundation of emotional intelligence. It's a foundation of any success, what I feel right now. And of course, we all wear masks at some point, but I believe that my aha moment of like complete exhaustion and burnout is that if I am more myself and I connect with people and am still professional, I'm still demanding excellence from people, but I'm also human and I'm open, this is where people collaborate and everything shifts. So
Wow.
that's my story, little story of where I first realized that this is an incredible power. There's an incredible power in authenticity and bringing our true human self to a workplace.
Like Yenvy, your story, Iwona, is so refreshing because it shows, the force, the power, as you said, that comes from these steps. Like I love how you didn't got the influence from your parents, you were able to, but then at some point when you get promoted and promoted the youngest, the only woman, then the environment somehow makes you put the mask, right? Makes you, I think we all have a limit or a certain context that we end up feeling like an imposter at some point somewhere, and then we end up putting a mask. So this is for everyone listening. All of us are having a mask in some context at some point of time. So it's relevant for all of us to learn how to take it out. When you had the burnout, Iwona, of course, you had the wisdom to reflect in a more systemic way, right? And you said, it's just a job? So you look at the other pillars of life and you look at the bigger picture, and you were able to make a more coherent vision, a more inspiring vision for having it all, right? And somehow you did, because you then brought your listening and feeling and not resisting and the kindness and professionalism that you bring to us every week, every day when we work together. And that's your gift, right? So you've seen in the corporate world how this made it more effective. And now you see it as an entrepreneur with us, how we can help companies be more effective because of this kindness and professionalism together. So it's another level of authenticity you achieved, and you have so much more power now. Would you say, Iwona, that the fact that you push your limits and you are promoted and getting these opportunities was somehow a gift for you to face this challenge and then be in such a level where you modeled some people going wrong, maybe intensely, but then you found your mission, like Yenvy, your sense of purpose, and now you're much more aligned and powerful because of that?
Yes, definitely. This is
Mm,
all, I believe that every experience that we have in life is meant for us to help us
mm,
become who we
mm,
are and help us grow and help other people grow as well, because that deeply influenced all the struggles that I've been through, and the realization that I don't have to be a man to be
mm,
successful
mm,
me also with my teams. And this is where my journey towards coaching started,
mm,
because I
mm,
helped my teams do the same. I could show them that you can be professional, you can be a high skilled employee, you can be really tough when it needs to be tough, but you can also be normal, human. We can trust one another.
Mhm.
And this is where you can be successful this way. And that's why I always really, really loved working with my teams, because we had, I feel, I believe that we always had a really, really great connection and authentic friendship.
Mm.
mm. I'm
I
sure your humility, Ivona, helps you to build these true authentic connections. And I'll share my story in a minute, but go, Yenvy.
Yeah, I think when we're building companies and we work in an environment, we forget that we're building for people, for humans.
Yes.
Everything we
Yes.
build, products, services,
Mm,
technology, widgets, whatever it is, it's so that it makes a human being's lives better, right?
mm,
And we forget that component, and so we dissociate ourselves within the corporate environment from other humans almost, because that human connection is what allows us to be creative in developing and creating services and products that other humans will love, right? But when we disassociate ourselves, we're just robots building and creating, and are not even creating, just building. And so we're unhappy. The product and services we're making are subpar because it's not, we forget about the human side of it. And so the more human we are, the more authentic we are, we become much more creative in how we think
mm,
and create products and services as well, and how we deliver it. Because to the core of what we're developing, it's to serve others, right? And so when we serve even our co-founders, our employees, our staff, our associates, that's the connection that allows us to connect even with our customers, right? And so we have to get to that space. And it's even tougher with AI now, right? To connect, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But I think now it's uh, to the core of it is that human connection, and being
mm.
authentic to yourself is how you're going to connect with others.
Yes. And I think it's
Thank you.
so. Yes, when you say about clients, customers, this is so true. And I believe that companies that forget about that aspect and don't care about people and this
Mm,
human connection, or don't think that emotional intelligence is actually at the core of this, even though their businesses go okay now, I think they can make much more. They can grow much more, much faster. So That's just my side. But I'm really curious now, Alex, about your story.
Yes, you will see that in my story and my aha moment, the human connection is also the key, right? The more you become universal, global, and connect to oneness, 8 billions and brothers and sisters, then you find the answers to get unstuck, like I was. So in my case, it was my parents, French society, the teachers, everyone I had around me in the first 20 years brought me to become an engineer in telecommunications, which is really far from my true essence somehow, but I was wearing a mask and I was fitting in. And, I was so rewarded for being intelligent and like cognitive ability. So I end up going to one of the best schools and studying so much and letting my other pillars of my life fall down. So I was sick physically all the time. My relationships were miserable. I was suffering emotionally and financially. I was a burden, not making money. And spiritually, there was nothing. And, so I even had difficult relationship. My friendships were not very meaningful with my family. So I was at the bottom in almost every single pillar because I relied on the French educational system to just, if I do everything at the highest level, I will be happy. And clearly it failed. So I had a deep depression somehow inside, and I was using alcohol and drugs, different things to try to get by because I was so much in pain by modeling what the environment around me was suggesting I did. So this was my first wake-up call, and thanks to ISEC, to the global organization, to traveling the world and personal development, I opened my eyes to other possibilities, to living my calling, like you both said, to being more myself. And I've been for many years being myself in this organization and promoted to the president, to global leadership leader, and I found myself there. But that was just a platform. So I had to enter corporate world because, that's just a student organization. So when I entered there, it was hard because, the norms are not the same. And you're supposed to wear a tie. In my case, where I was in a big multinational, a tie and a suit, and you're supposed to fit. And in this environment, I was going through a spiritual transformation. And I remember when I arrived in Mexico for my first Fortune 100 type of job. And then I arrived and I had decided to become a Baha'i at this moment. So I had decided to stop drinking alcohol and I had evolved, all these years in ISEC. And then I come and I wanted to announce to my boss and to the team that I don't drink anymore. And the first night is the birthday of my boss, and he like tequila shots, and I'm like, I don't drink. It's come on, it's my birthday. He remembered me from before, so he's like, take your tequila shot, and then by the pressure there, I drink the tequila shot. It was the last drink I had in my life, and then I remember having this shot because I didn't felt like I could be myself there in this party with all the partners and everything looking. But then he created the condition for my integration with the team days where we could all share our life stories and there was space. And this is where I was able to tell everyone that, I was in this process of embracing a new phase and I wanted to stop drinking. And really this was, and to be vulnerable and to say things that I knew were uncomfortable in my context. And I shared my challenges with depression before and everything. And wow, the trust that we built in these team days in December 2011 in Mexico, I can remember how powerful it was and how then my boss was there and he understood. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry about this situation. And then I could own myself and explain why and go deep. And then we had very spiritual conversations as a consequence of that. And then I was even able to become the HR leader of the business unit in addition to the French and Brazilian market leader because of the skills I demonstrated in hosting these spaces with having these emotional autobiographies where people will share deep things and creating the environment. So this was my first insight and my first aha moment where I realized that by creating the conditions for people to have, because in a party with pressure and ego and significance, and it's not the right place for you to be totally yourself, but in a quiet, slow down environment where you take time to build relationships facilitated properly, we can all have more courage. We can all, if one person starts, because I've done it in my other teams after, and I was quite successful at building many teams by going first in sharing, I'm actually my second and last aha moment is when I quit corporate and I build my business. So after a successful corporate career in a big multinational, I quit and I built my business and I had like 8 people around me. And I was feeling like the hero, like I was a super coach, the super speaker, the one putting the money, the one hiring people. And somehow I was putting a mask of an entrepreneur that I was not. I was an entrepreneur, but I had never been an entrepreneur putting my own capital and my own brand. It's not the same as the Fortune 100 brand, right? An ecosystem. So I was lying to myself and to these people. And because of that, we were not making money. We were not efficient. We were frustrated. It was like a lie somehow. It's only when I was able to actually bring humility, which I admire you both have a lot, uh, and to say, actually, I don't know how to build a business. I just know how to make a company more profitable by getting the sales team and by finding opportunities and building a business unit. But I don't know how to start a company from scratch in a new country. Just as a recent father with, my life became very challenging. I went through the dark night of the soul because I had two children, just got married and launched a business, thinking like I could handle all of that at the same time without looking at my limitations and being more assertive about who I really was and what my capacities were. This was my lack of emotional intelligence. Even after 9 years developing emotional intelligence, I had to come and to say, actually, I suck at looking what I'm really capable of doing or not. And now I have to say to everyone, actually, I'm not going to be able to pay you and to keep you and to develop you. And I'm sorry, you have to find your own way, And I'm looking for co-founders that will take the risk. And one person stayed and took the risk with me. And we had 5 years of building a company together, and she took it over when I left, and it was beautiful. But it was very hard and very tough, and I had to let my ego and my significance aside so I could really say, actually, I have no idea how we're going to build processes. I have no idea how we're going to make this company pay ourselves and everything, and to find the right co-founder and to be able to build something truly magnificent. There was many challenges down the road, but these are some of the ones that I can remember at the depth of my soul that were hard, impactful, and memorable.
Wow, incredible. I think you like you mentioned a lot of incredible things here, but the humility part really touches me because it's I think we don't see this a lot.
Yeah.
And that also takes a lot of vulnerability to admit that. I think
Mm.
people often confuse what authenticity truly is. It's not about oversharing or showing up with all your emotions, but
Mm.
really understanding what are our limitations and being more purposeful about how we go about certain things, our approaches, and being like, as you said, like humility plays a big factor in that. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Wonderful. There's a term, a Japanese term called wabi-sabi, and they use it more in architecture and design, where it's the perfection of imperfection, right?
Mm.
And if you look at the wabi-sabi designs, like they'll have a vase, for example, and maybe it's cracked. It fell on the ground and it cracked. But what they do is they take it, they paste it together, and they put gold on it. And so now it's another design. It's another beautiful piece of art on its own, right? And I think that that's what authenticity is. Like we just have to get away from the idea of perfect, because perfect is somebody else's idea, right? So we're looking at somebody and we think that that's what perfect is, and we try to emulate that, as opposed to just saying, you know, I'm growing, and it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as perfect or imperfect. It's just I'm just growing, right? And so I think I find this a lot when I mentor and I coach and just being a leader in my own corporation. When I grow people within, even in my corporation, I explain to them, they I bring on these like A-type individuals, that's wants to be perfect, and they're never happy because it's not perfect. And I was like, well, whose idea is that? Right? Because that's what it is. It's somebody else's idea that we're trying to live up to. And so once we release that, then we're able to create. We're able to live beyond what others' ideas are, right? And that's where I think the beauty of entrepreneurship is as well, is that if you're creating something for yourself and you want to expand, you just got to let it go and forget about what the definition of perfect is, because that's somebody else's definition, right? And so when you're able to do that, that's when you step into your own authenticity, your own empowerment, your own abilities and creation. And it's the most beautiful place to be because you found a foundation where you're most happy to be yourself.
And you know what's beautiful is that the true imperfections that we all embrace, we all have our own abilities. And depending on context, in some spaces, I am the best leader manager there. And I bring this ability of mine because I do have some. But then I meet Iwona and I'm like, yeah, but with Iwona, clearly I don't have because in our company, she has this ability more developed. In some spaces, I'm the most entrepreneurial person and I can really help people scale and see. But then I meet Yenvy and I'm like, oh, she can help me go to another level. And maybe I won't use this ability here as much and I can focus in another one, which I have more of a genius. And, so we all interconnected somehow. And when we embrace our imperfection, I love going to meet people and saying, my top three weakness, I'm very good at communicating by writing, adherence, following the process to the letter, and details. These are my three things that are most painful for me. And I really see how it takes a lot of energy to just, and then it opens up because sometimes people say, actually, this is my number one strength. I love it. And then you come up with a project together because it's all about embracing each other's imperfection and somehow humanity can be perfect together, right?
Right.
That's my conception. I don't know what you think about this.
I
Yeah,
think,
absolutely.
yeah, go ahead, Ivana.
No, but it's a great example, and you showed it also like, with us. All of us have different strengths, and this is how we work well as a team. I think at all situations we wear different hats. I'm not saying masks,
Mm,
but different hats. So
mm,
you're
mm,
right that at some situation you will be a great leader manager or entrepreneur. But here as well, I've been trained by Tony to be a leader of a state and I can transform people there. But then when I
mm,
see your energy, the same happens. You're the most incredible person when it comes to managing emotions and states of other people, influencing this. This is so important, the self-awareness. And
Yes,
this is also the journey towards success in any team, in any environment, to be first self-aware, to stop, pause, and really understand what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, how we can complement each other. So I think that this is absolutely great skill. Wouldn't you agree?
yes. Look, I have a quick question for both of you. What would you say, just for our listeners, if they could take away something in regards to how they can evaluate themselves right now and
mm,
make a decision on what mask they're actually wearing, right? If they like, how do you identify that you are wearing a mask? Like, where do you go and how
mm.
what do you audit on yourself, right? Your environment. Like, how do you go about auditing that and saying, I'm wearing a mask? And because that awareness is the first step to taking an action, right? Once you have that awareness, you're like, you have to do something. You have your choices. You're going to stay the same, or you're going to take some action to change it, or to fix it. So what would be the way that you would approach that to recognize that there's a mask and what the mask is even?
I will say two things. I will say the short and the long term, right? The
Right.
short, most like if you want a quick win right now, as you are connected to the webinar or watching the recording, is you have tools like a self-assessment, like you just take a disc profile. It's one basic tool that's been around forever and that I went very deep on and help people from all over the world with it that transform C-levels of companies and culture. I've managed to get companies from like organizations from 40% to 80% engagement in 10 weeks just by using a few simple tools so people can have an immediate, like in an hour, you have a 360 evaluation of people, how they see you and how you see yourself, and you see it doesn't match. That can be a very quick win. And there is many frameworks. I have 100 of them that I've used over my 2 decades of experience, but that can give you direct feedback. People see you as more aggressive than you see yourself, or more assertive, or more like the listening even I was talking about when she realized that was a true gift and that actually people will come to her because of that. So you have the assessment, the wheel of life. I have my own version of it, but there is many versions of evaluating where you are in your life compared to where you want to be, and that gives you a feedback instantly, in a few minutes. But then you have the long-term process, which it's more complex. It's not just tool based, right? It's like how can you be self-aware if you don't have the spiritual quality of humility? We talked about this. It's like you can have the best 360 assessment and the best coach in the world and the best kind of truthful team that has the courage to give you feedback and everything. If your soul or your spirit is not at the level where you're able to see yourself as part of a global ecosystem where you're not better than the others, and you are in some aspects but not in others, and we are equal as souls, even if we are different value in the marketplace, we need to separate both. So it requires some, at least for me, it was a long 20 years personal development process to just embrace a bit of the capacity to question and be more curious and be able to face some painful, to accept the feedbacks and let them sink in and find the resources to process them. So going to environments of personal growth, masterminds, coaching, having people mentoring, helping you is combination of reading books, watching contents, doing like investing a lot of money and time. That was a long answer that I just got started on.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Alex. And I also think this profile is excellent tool to start with. Just make sure you have someone to walk you through this, someone professional with that, because there it can be misunderstood. Um, I would add to what you said, Alex, give yourself some time
Yeah.
every day.
Hmm. Baby
But
steps.
baby steps, exactly.
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
are all busy. We are all busy and have million things to do.
Hmm.
And we have very little time with ourselves. Who am I really? What do I enjoy doing? Who do I show up with as when I'm truly being myself? We never ask ourselves those questions. We are too busy to even think about that. So put aside some time. Again, state management, I'm a big supporter of practicing gratefulness because this is the most powerful emotion that
Hmm.
erases fear, anger, all the all the other ones. So really stay in what you're really grateful for, and this is how day by day, slowly you can reconnect with yourself and then start asking yourself those questions. Who am I when I really feel at my best, when I really enjoy life? What situation give me this strength, this power? And just stay true to yourself little by little.
Mm.
What about you, Yenvy? We are approaching the end, so maybe we're going to go to the final words of wisdom to capture. But I would love if you could develop this answer, Yenvy, and maybe talk a bit about technology as well, because I just mentioned tools. And in the age
Yeah.
of technology and AI today, how is that possible to get to know ourselves in this
Yeah.
desperate, crazy world?
Yeah, I think we're in a space right now because that's my background is technology,
Mhm.
building companies
Mhm.
powered by technology, right? And that's always I would say powered by technology, and that's a very very important word that we have to make sure that
Mhm.
we understand, especially in a corporate environment because there's so much anxiety around this by individuals who feel like they're going to be replaced by AI, for example, right? And we have to be in a position where we think about how do we leverage it and make it work with us. And every time I look at um, articles publishing every single day, it's this company just laid off this number of thousands of people. And and again, remember that we're building services and products for ourselves, really. We're building it for our friends, our family, our mothers, our fathers, and we forget about that. And now we have this corporate structure that's just building technology, and we're just trying to use whatever comes from these technology. But but then where are we in this model? Where are we in this environment? Right? And so that's why we exist as Authentifly is during this transformation. And it's not just the AI transformation. There's going to be we're going to have cyborgs, we're going to have robots, we're going to have all types of stuff that will impact how we look at corporation, how we spend our days. Because remember that a company is just a space where we spend our day, really,
Mhm.
right? And it helps supports us. And I sometimes I think about it, I was like, oh, it's an adult babysitting. Like I send my child to daycare and then I go to this place, 9 to 5. It's like daycare for a human being, right? And I look at it from that perspective. I was like, why can't I have fun at daycare when my daughter's having fun at daycare? She gets naps and stuff, right? And so we forget this. And I think it's really, really important for corporate leaders to understand
Mm.
that,
Yeah.
where one day, and I know when I listen to people like Elon and Sam Altman, and they're saying you will have your time back because AI will do a lot of these work. But a lot of people are saying, well, I enjoy my work. Why do I, if I enjoy my work, then what do I need to lose that? And what else am I going to do? Because I'm going to have to find something else to make money, right? And I think
Mm.
these are everything that's happening in our mind. And sometimes what's most important is that that may never even happen, right? I'm giving you this story right now.
Mm.
Why? Because this story is what's happening right now. This is a story we're hearing in the environment, in the news, right? But this story may never happen. And it's up to us to make that decision on whether it happens or not. And it's up to the corporate leaders, to make that decision on whether the story uh of people not existing in a day-to-day corporation because we're all run by AI and technology, what does that story look like for your company? And that's why
Mm.
we're here, because whether, you were a train conductor and we saw the evolution of how things start to evolve when new technology and innovation starts to come in, is people still survive. They always find their way, right? We always find our way, we evolve, but it doesn't have to be really hard. That's why we
Mm.
exist, as Authentifly, is to help corporations navigate that emotional intelligence, that human connection, that connection to our customers, uh, through our products and services, through our employees. And I always use the example in healthcare, for example, when I'm building companies, is if I'm calling a company that's building healthcare and helping me reverse chronic diseases like diabetes or heart disease, that person on the other line better be very healthy, right? That person that's giving me advice and trying to help me combat these diseases better be healthy on that other line. And so that's
Mm.
really our goal, is to create that type of environment within a corporation so that it permeates out into the world, to the customer, and through its products and services. And so that's my little bit on it.
That's That's beautiful, and our time is almost over, but I will close by saying that, it's true what you shared, Yenvy and Iwona. In all our story, you see the passion, the energy, how it was important for this unmasking, for this transformation. And that's why we founded Authentifly. That's why we decided, the three of us, to come together with all our energies, with all our passion, with all our strengths, to choose and select a few selected international companies where the C-levels are ready to do something different, are ready to be pioneers for the next generation. And then we're going to select the ones that we believe have this desire and integrity and have done some of the unmaskings themselves and are ready to go much further. And we're going to put skin in the game. And we help these companies transform their culture. We help this company increase their performance. And we
Right.
put the skin in the game to say, we believe this is happening. It's not like we come and we sell you with some proposals and we do training and then you never see the impact. No, we come with you. We join these companies with all our years of experience of entrepreneurship, corporate, personal development, and we get the cultures to shift in the age of AI, in the age of distant work, in the age of multi-generations, of different genders, different nationality, whatever difference it is, and we make the communication work effective and the results come. So we go all the way with companies to make them successful and to make this daycare, like Yenvy said, that can be fun as well. So we enjoy ourselves while doing it. We have fun inside our company with our clients, the selected ones, and with you guys that are listening that maybe are thinking, oh, I know someone. I know this C-level. I know this owner that is maybe having a company that's already successful, already making tens of millions, already global, but he wants to go to the next level and to really keep growing because he has a mission, he has an impact, and there is this desire to challenge and not just follow the model of what was done in the industrial age, but actually reinvent the world of work. Then we are the right people to work with. Then you want to contact us, go to our website, Authentifly, and ask us to come. And the three of us will come and we'll bring everything we have to turn around this company, yours or the one the person you believe has the right fit with what we just shared today. So this was Authentifly. This was our 3 stories of unmasking leadership and bringing emotional intelligence. I hope you enjoyed and see you soon for other webinars. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.